You're 17, kneeling in your backyard, dropping a dead maple with a steel chainsaw to save your dad about $300 a cord at the firewood lot. 2 decades later, the standing timber in this business sells by the section, 555,000 acres, $300 million in a single deal. Between those two numbers sits a job almost nobody films, because the work moved into climate-controlled cabs and the danger stayed outside them. It also kills more workers than any other job in the country. The money, it turns out, never lived where you think it does, not in the hands on the saw. This is every level of a logger's career in America, and where the money actually hides. If you like breakdowns of how careers actually progress, like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Level 1. The backyard. You're not getting paid yet. This is the tier before the job. You buy a Stihl chainsaw off the rack for $619.99, mix the 2-stroke fuel 50-to-1, and pull the cord until it catches. The dead maple in the yard leans toward the fence, which is the one direction you can't let it fall, so you do what every faller does first. You read the lean. You clear an escape path at 45 degrees behind the tree and drop the brush out of your way. You cut an open-face notch on the side you want it to go, gunning the sightlines straight at the open lawn behind the fence. Then you bore the back of the trunk and leave a strip of holding wood, the hinge. You set the notch too shallow on the first try, and the trunk sits back and pinches the bar. You drive a plastic falling wedge in behind the cut and tap it with the back of the axe until the lean reverses. The maple lets go. It goes where you aimed, not onto the fence. You limb the top, buck the trunk into 16-inch rounds, and split them with a Fisker's maul. You sharpen the chain with a round file, 2 strokes per tooth, and stack a face cord against the shed. The firewood lot down the road sells a cord for about $300. You stack yours for nothing. You stop buying firewood. None of this is a career yet. It's a Saturday. But the first tree you drop on purpose teaches you what the lot never could. A leaning 80-foot trunk obeys a strip of holding wood the width of your thumb. If you cut it right, then the yard is quiet. You like it enough to want it for money. Level 2 is the first paycheck and the lowest rung in the woods. Level 2, the Groundman. This is the first rung you get paid for, and it starts at $19.82 an hour. The bottom tenth of the trade clears under $35,230 a year, and on your first morning you're squarely in it. You show up at 5:30 in the dark, in Carhartt and a hard hat, and drag limbs and tops to the chipper until your arms stop arguing. The chipper roars and throws a fog of diesel and wet bark over the landing. Your real job is the choker, the steel cable that drags felled logs to the deck. You wait for the skidder operator's signal, walk down to a downed stem, and loop the choker behind the swell at the butt. You seat the bell, step clear, and signal the operator to pull the turnout. The first time, you set the choker too low and it slips off halfway up the skid road. The operator backs down, says nothing, and you reset it, this time behind the swell, where it holds. You learn fast that the woods don't repeat themselves. No one warns you twice. A log rolls off the deck, and the cable whips tight across the exact patch of mud you were standing in a breath ago. You're already 3 steps clear, because an old hand pulled you out of the bite of that cable and told you never to stand inside it. You stop standing in the bite of the cable. A guy named Jacob Rogers runs a tree outfit called Guilty of Treason out of Enumclaw, Washington. He films the groundwork for a living, chokers, brush, the whole low rung. A kid can watch it before he ever sets foot on a landing. Your first paycheck clears, and the foreman starts using your name instead of pointing. Then the chipper goes quiet. You're still the lowest body on the crew, but you're in the woods, and the next rung is the saw. Level 3. The chainsaw feller. The pay finally looks like a job. $49,540 a year is the median by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's also, by any measure, the most dangerous chair in America. All workers in the country die on the job at 3.3 per 100,000. Loggers die at about 110 per 100,000 workers. You run a Stihl Pro Saw now, and you drop an 80-foot Douglas fir that leans the wrong way. You clear the brush at the base and walk your escape path twice before you start. You gun the open face toward the lay you want, then bore through the back and leave the hinge. Falling wedges go in behind the bar to keep the trunk from settling onto it. You file the chain twice a day because a dull chain pushes instead of cuts, and a saw that pushes is a saw that kicks back. Then comes the tree that tests whether you belong here. It's a big fir leaning hard away from the lay. A tree like that wants to barber chair, to split up the trunk and slap backward off the stump before the cut is done. A barber chair has killed more fallers than almost anything in these woods. You don't back cut it straight the way the lean is begging you to. You bore in from the side and set the hinge from the inside out. You release the holding wood last, so the trunk has nowhere to split before it commits to the fall. The hinge holds. The fir goes over clean away from you, exactly down the lay. You don't run. You walk the escape path you cleared, because the fallers who run are the ones who trip. You stop, walking under hung-up trees. A tree that gets caught in another on the way down. A hang-up. You leave for the machine every time. The skill here has a name and a price. Game of logging, $250 per level. 4 levels of training that teach exactly this cut. And the law has a number, OSHA 1910.266, the federal logging standard in force since 1995. The reason the chaps on your legs and the chain brake on your saw aren't optional. You pass all 4 levels, and the cutting boss starts handing you the back leaners no one else wants. Then it's quiet again. You're the most skilled pair of hands in the woods. And the trade has already decided the future doesn't belong to hands at all. It belongs to the machine. Level 4 is the cab. Level 4. The equipment operator. The job stops being about your hands and starts being about the machine. And the machine costs more than your house. A used Tiger Cat Feller buncher runs about $268,000 on the lot. A new one off the factory floor runs up to about $710,000. You sit in a climate-controlled cab behind glass, working 2 joysticks, and shear a standing tree off at the stump without ever touching it. Then you climb into a John Deere skidder, about $108,000, to drag the turns to the landing. You back to the bunched stems, drop the grapple, clamp a turn of logs, and raise the arch. You drag them down the skid road, swing onto the landing, release the deck, and back out empty for the next turn. A Ponza harvester delimbs and cuts the stems to length. A cat loader sorts them on the deck and loads the trucks. The test on this level is a slope. You take a side slope skid 2 square to the hill, and the uphill track lifts off the ground. The track lifts. You ease the grapple load downhill and feather the throttle, and the machine settles back onto 4 corners before it can roll. A wrong line here tips a $250,000 machine onto its roof, with you inside it. On ground a logger used to walk across on foot. You stop climbing out to check the line. You read the slope from the seat now, the way you used to read a lean from the ground. Cody Baker is 27, and he runs equipment with his father at Baker Land and Cattle in Malvern, Arkansas. These days the family's business is in the woods, not the pastures. One operator in a Feller buncher today outcuts an entire crew of 10 from the 1970s. The deck fills faster than the trucks can haul it away. The cab is warm. You've never been more productive or more dependent on a payment book. Level 5 is the truck. And the truck is where the wood finally turns into money. Level 5. The log truck driver. This is where the wood turns into money, and the median pay is $57,440. You need a CDL to sit in the seat, and a Peterbilt or a Kenworth under you to do the job. You back the empty trailer under the loader and hold it dead still, while the operator decks 25 to 30 tons of logs onto the bunks. You throw the load binders over the top, ratchet them tight, and walk the trailer to check every strap before you roll. The mill is over the mountain, and the only way there is down. The grade drops away on wet gravel, and the loaded trailer wants to push you down the hill faster than you can stop it. You set the Jake brake at the top, and let the engine hold the weight. Instead of riding the service brakes down, you reach the mill with brakes that still work, and the man at the scale waves you through clean. The first month, you scale in 1 load over the legal weight and eat the ticket. After that, you watch the loader build every load to the line, not an inch over. You stop tapping the brakes on the grade. You let the engine do it, because a driver who rides the brakes down a mountain reaches the bottom with none left. The going rate is about $240 a load. The wood chained to your trailer is worth more than that. Far more. And that math is the whole reason men in this trade buy their own trucks. Tracy Harris runs an outfit called 44 Trucking out of South Georgia, hauling nearly 1,000 loads a week for contract crews across Georgia and Florida. That's where the trucking goes if you stop driving and start owning. Then the air brakes hiss. You can drive for the rest of your life, or you can run the woods that fill these trucks. Level 6 is the man who runs them. Level 6. The crew foreman. You stop cutting and start running the chessboard for a median of $57,320 a year. Your tools are flagging tape, a can of spray paint, a two-way radio, and the harvest map folded in your back pocket. You walk the boundary before anyone fires a saw, flag the property lines and the streams you can't cross, and lay out the skid roads and the landing. Then you brief the crew, set the day's targets, and the cutting starts. Your real skill is sequencing, keeping the deck stocked so the trucks never sit empty, and keeping the cutting ahead of the deck. You grade the wood as it comes in, and the grade is where the money hides. A clean butt log, graded as veneer, is worth $2,600 to $6,000 per 1,000 board feet. The top of the very same tree goes to the pulp mill at $7 to $10 a ton. Same tree, and the spread between its two ends is the whole game. Then the test arrives at mid-morning. The skidder throws a hydraulic line, and 3 loaded trucks are idling at the landing with nowhere to go. You swing the loader to the cold deck you built the day before for exactly this, and the trucks keep rolling while the line gets fixed. You stop reaching for the saw. Your hands are on the radio and the scales stick now, not the bar. You also hold the 2 tree-length spacing between fallers that keeps one man's tree off another man's back. Toby McDowell runs C. McDowell Logging in Butts County, Georgia, and took Georgia Logger of the Year for 2025. He bought his first truck at 18, and as he put it, "I always said that one day I would be a logger." Then the trucks roll. You run the woods now, but you don't own them, and the last rung is the one that does. Level 7 is the owner. Level 7, the logging contractor. There's no salary on this rung. The peak is measured in the iron you own and the timber you control. You bid stumpage against other contractors, finance a feller buncher on a loan note, and negotiate haul rates and mill quotas. You make payroll on Friday, whether the mill paid you or not. The cutter's hands matter less here than the banker's terms. This is a capital and risk job wearing logger's boots. You cruise a stand of timber, bid the stumpage, sign the contract, mobilize a crew, and run the wood to the mill. Then the test comes from a direction no chainsaw ever did. The mill cuts your quota in half overnight, and your iron sits idle while the payments keep coming due. You shift 2 crews to a second mill you'd kept a standing contract with, and the loan note gets paid on time. You chase the master logger certification landowners ask for by name, and once you hold it, the timber sales start coming to you. You stop going out to the cutting. You haven't run a saw in years, and the trade is thinning around you. The Bureau of Labor Statistics counts about 44,300 people in the whole trade, and the Forest Resources Association surveyed roughly 200 of these businesses. 31% plan to be gone within 5 years, and 71% of the owners are already 50 or older. You're still here, and the work is still yours. The very top of this world isn't a logger at all. It's the company that buys the land by the section and sells it for $300 million. You don't own that ground, but you own the iron that cuts it, the trucks that haul it, and the crews that run them. Graham Van Dusen runs Van Dusen Timber Corp. in Hallsville, Texas, and took the 2025 Logging Business of the Year. He says it plainly, "I'm just a businessman that owns a logging business, and I'm not going to get up in a machine and run it." Then the lot goes quiet at dusk. The final beat is the truth about where the money was the whole time. Here's the part the backyard never tells you. The most skilled job in the woods, the faller, the one with the saw and the steady hands, is the lowest leverage earner on the whole ladder. The money was never really in the cutting. It migrated to the trucks that haul the wood, to the iron that cuts it, and to the deeds that own the ground it grows on. The best cutters often never want to leave the saw, and the saw never made anyone rich. You did leave it. You climbed off the stump and into the cab, out of the cab and into the truck, out of the truck and into the office, where the loan notes and the timber contracts get signed. The Stihl chainsaw you bought for $619.99 and pull-started in your dad's backyard still rides behind the seat of your truck. These days it idles next to a Tiger Cat Feller buncher worth up to about $710,000. And you own them both. Logging is still the deadliest job in the country, and you knew men who walked into the woods one morning and didn't walk out. You did walk out, every time, and you climbed higher than any of those mornings could reach. The very top of the trade still belongs to the companies that buy the land by the section and sell it for $300 million, and you never owned that ground. But the iron is yours, free and clear, and so are the crews and the trucks. Somewhere right now, a 17-year-old is dropping a dead maple in his dad's backyard to save him about $300 a cord. He doesn't know yet that the saw in his hands is the cheapest thing he'll ever own in this trade. The keys to every machine in the yard hang on a hook by the office door. Every one of them is yours.